All-new motorcycle simulators from Fresh Studios do not appear very often. Over the past decade, aside from Milestone's range of ever-present ride and MotoGP titles, there's been TT Isle of Man Ride on the Edge, Track Day R, and, well, that's about it. Created by new Milanese team RaceWard Studios, RiMS Racing is here to expand the genre, delivering competition to the long-established outfits. But simply being a motorcycle game from a different developer alone is not worthy of conversation. So RiMS Racing goes to great lengths to differentiate itself. I'm not exaggerating when I say there's nothing else quite like it. If variety is the spice of life, then RiMS Racing is the atomic hot wing of the motorcycle game space. If you want to know what makes up this game in greater detail, we already have a hands-on video preview, which we'll link in the description down below, alongside an article on the TraxionGG website covering off the main points you need to know about this release. Seeing as you are here though, it would be rude not to briefly recap the current state of play. In essence, RiMS Racing is a road motorcycle simulator. The bike handling and braking are authentic. The vehicles are expertly recreated, and you predominantly spend your time playing a 70-event-long career mode, aiming to become the pro champion. However, what makes this release stand out is not just the serious focus on the on-track antics, but the incredible detail off-track as well. Each motorbike has over 50 parts that have been modeled, and after each event, certain elements will have received wear. It's up to you to make sure your ride is in tip-top condition at all times, otherwise your performance will suffer. In this respect, it's like melding Car Mechanic Simulator with Assetto Corsa Competizione, only with just 2 wheels. If that sounds a little weird, that's because, well, it is. But hey, in principle, I'm down for that. After all, Weird gave us Pablo Picasso, Elton John, and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Unlike most racing game reviews, we'll start with the admin. Upon diving into the career for the first time, you are presented with the task of selecting any motorcycle from the game, and for free. The catch is that there are only 8 motorcycles in the game. 8. Which isn't a bad thing. No, really, it's actually refreshing. Instead of including a seemingly never-ending list of vehicles that you probably won't ride anyway, the idea here is to make each the very best possible representation it can be. Quality over quantity. In this respect, RiMS Racing is a triumph. With over 500 licensed parts across the 8 bikes, you get to learn which chain manufacturer delivers the best performance, or you can simply select your favorite purveyor of brake fluid if you've got one of those. An Aprilia RS V4 not only looks different to a Suzuki GSX-R 1000, there is a specific range of parts for each. Adding a new exhaust to your steed makes it sound different, letting the clutch wear out results in a slower race start, and worn tires lead to the front end washing out and your rider eating the asphalt. Each bike handles and stops with a distinct character too. To switch out parts, you must first buy them from an in-game store, using credits you have earned thanks to successful race results, of course. After removing the old parts through a series of often lengthy quick-time events, you can sell them for a paltry return before affixing the fresh upgrades. At first, this is new and different, how exciting! Until you realize that asset management is boring. Sorry if that's your career. After a few races, the upkeep becomes more hectic than drying a border collie after a swim. Everything is worn out, you don't have the requisite funds to fix it all, and there's endless stick twiddling to do. Thankfully, you also gain resource points, and this can be spent to unlock the fast mount ability, which saves you from the attachment process at least. Once you work your way around the slightly cumbersome shop design and avoid buying parts that don't work with your motorcycle, oops, then I suppose if you're in the right frame of mind, there's something calming to part swapping, like one of those TV shows where they polish antique furniture. Perhaps what encapsulates the attention to detail more than anything is the way the bike wears down. Not only does it get dirty after multiple races, but when you fall off, and you will fall off, it gets scratched. And those scratches stay there for each subsequent race until you replace the necessary parts. It's anal, but in a good way. Even when you do make it onto a circuit, the fastidious nature carries across. Sparks fly from your rider's knee protection, you can select how many fingers they brake with, and they stick their leg out in panic should you leave your braking until the last possible second as the bike squirms around. The rider animations have evolved significantly from the early build we tested in the preview, with the whole entry phase of a corner much more fluid and reactive. When you watch replays back, movements aren't perfectly smooth, but they are more grounded in reality than most other bike games. It's sad then that it's here where the positive vibe gets left behind, like Valentino Rossi during a race in 2021. It's painful because you know it could be so much better. During a race, you can access the Motorbike Status Check, or MSC, upon which the option to cycle through various parameters and check wear rates presents itself. The problem here is that trying to select the ECU or the tires is so difficult. The parts are split into two sections, left and right, but pressing right on the D-pad or analog stick doesn't move the menu across to the right, but instead down sometimes. And other times you press right and it goes left? Before the race, you can select your tires. When it rains, you need to choose suitable boots, otherwise you'll end up on slicks during a downpour, of course. Except, when I select a wet rear tire, my command is ignored. I have to do every wet race with tread up front and a slick on the rear. There are bonus objectives to earn extra credits, which is nice, except when they don't make any sense. Here's one I had: mount livery at least 7 times with an equivalent of higher condition value. I think it means change the livery on the bike 7 times. But on my BMW, the only motorcycle I had access to at the time, no additional liveries were available. It's beset by small inadequacies, such as the online multiplayer not being accessible from the headquarters, so I think most players could easily miss it. The leaderboard for an online challenge doesn't appear at the end of an event, you have to go hunting for it, and there's a man with a beard talking on an invisible phone. The career is simply one event after another. There's no gathering event types into areas, just complete one and then enter the next. You can't skip forward any events either, apart from the very occasional option to have a rest week. So if the next challenge is an endurance event, tough. You cannot progress any other way, unlike Chief Rival Ride 4, which does a much better job of spreading out events. The performance of the game is rough too. In 2021, on a current generation console, an unstable frame rate isn't really acceptable. So when it slows noticeably, it becomes more than a little irksome. Replays, sadly, are even worse. The texture pop-in on the $1 Million Highway reminds me of Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and both the frame rate and pop-in were present on the PC version as well, and in some instances actually worse, which probably explains why the Switch release was delayed at the last minute. Oh right, and how could I forget the AI? Madder than a box of frogs, they will brake in the middle of a corner, wildly overreact when an AI rider crashes, but also drive straight into the back of you. They simply cannot handle Monsanto. There is zero rhyme or reason to their behavior, and provided you can navigate past them, you will be mercifully left to your own devices. Jason Statham had a better time taming a megalodon in the movie The Meg than I did trying to overtake my rivals around the Nürburgring, and I'm sorry to everyone who understands that reference. Finally, there's the soundtrack by EDM stars The Bloody Beetroots. I like it, and so does Tom. He listened to it while he was writing this review, but it's at odds with the serious simulation tone of the game. Imagine if Billie Eilish played a 3-year-old's birthday party. It just doesn't feel right. There's real heart in RiMS racing. RaceWard Studio is clearly filled with talented and passionate individuals who really care about motorcycles, but I can't help but feel it needs another year in the oven. I hope they don't get disheartened though, because the potential is here for a game that is not just different, but hugely enjoyable too. It's just that at times, I found it to be a bit grueling, and for me, that's not what video games are about. Traxion verdict? Consider.